It was a quiet Tuesday morning when Evelyn Ashcroft, 69, stood before the mirror in her sunlit bedroom, her fingers trembling slightly as they hovered near her left hand. The gold band she had worn for over 4 decades sat there like a second skin, molded to her knuckle, polished smooth by time. She stared at it, then herself, as if waiting for permission to let go. Her home in Connecticut, once a bustling sanctuary of children's laughter and shared Sunday dinners, had become a museum of memories since Harold passed away 7 years ago. The rooms echoed differently now. The smell of pine cleaner and worn leather still clung to the study where he used to read. The garden he'd tended was overgrown but not forgotten, wildflowers spilling like stories across the walkways. Evelyn kept it all untouched, preserved as if he'd just stepped out and might return. But lately something had shifted. It began with the letter. She found it wedged behind the dresser while dusting, a yellowed envelope with her name written in Harold's familiar scrawl. It wasn't dated, but the ink had faded just enough to suggest it had been written long before his final days. Inside was a note, short and strange. If the day ever comes when you feel the silence more than my voice, promise me you won't stay trapped in it. Evelyn, let yourself bloom again. Let yourself be seen. She read it 3 times before folding it neatly and pressing it to her chest. That night she didn't sleep. Her mind wandered to places it hadn't dared go in years. Evelyn had always been elegant, composed, the kind of woman who remembered birthdays and wrote thank you cards. But beneath that polish was a woman who once painted barefoot in college studios, who once said yes to things before fear taught her caution. That woman had vanished slowly, traded for security, routine, and love. But Harold had seen her, hadn't he? Even when she forgot. So that Tuesday morning Evelyn took off the ring. Not out of disloyalty, but in reverence to the man who once knew she might need to. She placed it carefully in the wooden box on her dresser and closed it without ceremony. Her hand felt light. That afternoon she did something that made her knees weak with nerves. She signed up for a local art class. Not a lecture, not a gallery visit, but actual hands in paint, apron-wearing creation. When she arrived at the community center the following week, she hesitated at the door. Most of the others looked younger, though not all. Some wore paint-splattered overalls and wide smiles. Evelyn felt plain in her navy blouse, her silver hair pinned too tightly. She nearly turned back. Then she saw the easels. The smell of turpentine and oil paint hit her like an old lullaby. She stepped inside. Her hands were shaky that first class. She painted only shapes. Nothing grand, just color. But it came back like a language half remembered. Muscle memory guided her. She went again the next week. And again. Soon she noticed the little things. She laughed more easily. She stopped apologizing for taking up space in grocery store aisles. She wore a blouse that dipped just slightly at the collarbone, and didn't cover it with a scarf. One morning in April, she walked to the cafe near the river and sat outside, sketching the bridge. A woman around her age passed by and said, "That's lovely." Evelyn thanked her, and to her surprise, the woman sat down and joined her with a cup of tea. Her name was Nora, widowed too, childless, sharp-witted and warm-eyed. They met again a few days later. Then weekly, they talk about books, regret, old music and favorite smells. One evening, Evelyn invited Nora to her home. The old place lit up again, as if the walls exhaled with relief. Nora walked slowly through the halls, asking about the photographs, the garden. Evelyn showed her Harold's study. Nora didn't flinch. "Did he like Bach?" she asked. "Loved it," Evelyn replied. They played Bach that night in the living room, just loud enough to stir the dust from the corners. That summer, Evelyn displayed one of her paintings in a local fair. It was a swirl of deep blue and vermilion. She named it Permission. People asked what it meant. She just smiled. The ring stayed in the box. Sometimes, Evelyn would open it and hold it in her palm. She didn't cry. She didn't ache. She felt gratitude. Harold had loved her well. And in that love, he'd left her room to become whole again. Now she woke each morning not to emptiness, but to possibility. She walked barefoot in the grass. She painted. She danced once in the kitchen when no one was watching. And sometimes in the silence she heard his voice, not with sorrow but with a smile. "I see you," it seemed to say. And she whispered back, "I'm still here."